Hi everyone. Just before we get into the second part of our A82 podcast, we wanted to bring you a short message to say that our 2024 wall calendar is now available for pre-order. Only £8.95, it has 12 brand new images of Scotland from the 1960s, 70s, 80s and 90s. There really is a great selection of images this year. Proceeds from the sales of the calendar will ensure that we remain online through 2024 and continue to bring you these excellent podcasts, as well as share hundreds of new images on our social media channels. I really do hope that you'll consider supporting us. The calendar does make for a great gift, but of course, if you just want to snap one up for yourself, they will look great on any kitchen, office, or even bedroom wall. Quantities of the calendar are limited as always, and they will be shipping from early December. For more information, visit the online store section of our website. You'll find it at scottishroadsarchive.org/online-store. We'll also be sharing links to purchase the calendar on our social media channels, particularly Facebook and Twitter, so keep an eye on those too. In the meantime, let's get into part 2. I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Roadscast, a podcast all about Scotland's roads, bridges and motorways from the Scottish Roads Archive. I'm Stuart Baird.
And I'm John Hassel.
And we're joined again in this episode by Duncan McKnight.
Good morning, chaps. How are we doing?
Not bad. Good to see you again,
Duncan. Good to see you again, Duncan. So we're here for part 2 of our 2-part podcast series looking into the history of the A82.
A82, yeah.
In part 1, we got all the way from Glasgow all the way up to Glencoe.
Yes.
So you're going to take us this time, I take it, from Glencoe all the way up to Inverness.
All the way up to Inverness, where the A82 ends at Longman. There's going to be lots of things to talk about.
Let's not dwell on that too much and just get straight into it then.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Take it away, Duncan.
So we ended at Glencoe, where the Glencoe improvements end. And formerly the 82 ran round via... whereabouts? What's that place called?
Kinlochleven?
Kinlochleven, there we go. Kinlochleven.
That was good, Stuart. You didn't even have a map.
Yep.
Well done.
So it ran that way, and there was also a ferry at Ballachulish. Sounds familiar.
Yep.
And then we constructed the 82 was improved with the Ballachulish Bridge.
Yes.
Do we like the Ballachulish Bridge?
I love it, and I quite like the little arrangement you have there to get onto the bridge and go around.
Yep.
So what's the story with the Ballachulish Bridge? So a ferry was there prior.
A ferry was there.
The thing about Ballachulish, everybody thinks that bridge is ancient.
No.
Everybody thinks it's
No,
old because they think it looks old.
No.
But it does though.
No,
But
it does.
Tell us when it opened.
So this was officially opened on the 23rd of December 1975.
So it's
No.
quite
So it's
recent.
not old. I
No.
think people are getting confused with Connell
Yeah.
Bridge down in
Yes.
Oban. Check out the Connell Bridge podcast for more
It's
information
very
on
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, the Ballachulish Bridge. This was, I think, always going to be constructed because it wasn't a big distance and we could easily sling something over there.
Yeah.
So WA Fairhurst and Partners, they submitted a design for a large arch bridge. And it's more in keeping with the 2 bridges down at Glencoe, the 2 concrete bridges we spoke about. Cleveland Bridge looked at that and went, no, it's not ugly enough, and decided to construct a large steel truss bridge.
Are you going to let him away with that, Stuart?
Well, I've looked at some of the original drawings, and the old arch bridge looks lovely. It would have been really nice there, but no, we've got the big green thing.
Yeah, so these are the views of Duncan.
These are. No, I do like the Ballachulish Bridge because it's quite unique. We don't have many of them in Scotland in terms of how bulky and big it is.
You're right. Yeah.
Very functional.
Yep. So Cleveland Bridge and Engineering were the main contractors, with William Tawes being the subcontractor design. So they did the concrete piers. All was going well with the construction, but in June or July 1975, one of the bearings broke or it cracked, and the sound of this could be heard in Kinlochleven, some miles away. So this delayed the opening of the bridge significantly. There was a lot of running around, a lot of hoo-ha about it, but we managed to get the bearing out and a new one put in, and it opened in 1975. We don't own much background details about this or the bridge itself, so if anyone knows bits and pieces about it, please get in touch.
Yep.
Yeah,
Contact at scottisroadsarchive.org.uk.
Yep. And we've also got the bridge approaches, which were completed quite long after the bridge opened. So these are Carnoch to Craig Ranach, which is basically Glencoe to Ballachulish Bridge. So stage 1 was completed in 1982. So
That
sometime
long.
later,
Yeah.
So you were chucked off the bridge and back onto the twisty road again.
Yeah.
And then the 8th of October 1984, Rush and Tompkins built the second bit, so it basically bypassed the wee places.
Almost a decade later.
So that's one of the more modern sections of the 82.
I was going to say, it's quite nice north of the bridge there.
Yeah, you can do overtaking along there if it's quiet.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So from North Ballyhoolish to Inverness, this was taken forward again in the 30s as a big project upgrade. This was to provide a constant width of 18 foot and remove sharp corners and steep gradients. So this was a big improvement. Now, when I started researching this, I went, how am I going to, is there any information out there about it? But luckily, I've got a newspaper extract from The Scotsman from the 3rd of June 1933 about the completion of the roads, and luckily all the information is contained within this lovely article.
That made it easy for you. Yeah.
So I've extracted a good amount of it. I wasn't going to extract all of it, but it is a fantastic bit of text, and it does give a lot of information. So I'm going to do a bit of reading, a bit of John Hassel reading off the page here. So
it's a pro move.
So sit back. Okay, so it was 3 years ago, in March of 1930, that operations began on the Glasgow-Inverness Road, and when the work is finished in September of this year, one of the greatest achievements in road engineering in Scotland, or for that matter Britain, will have been accomplished. Some idea of the vastness of the work and of the engineering difficulties which has had to be overcome may be afforded by the fact that in a single section of road extending to only 8 miles, no less than 270,000 cubic yards of solid rock had to be removed. You can tell this is 1933.
Yeah, old money.
Cuttings in the rock had to be executed in some instances to a height of 80 feet on the cliffside. Each week, something like 17,500 cubic yards of material had to be excavated, and of that, 55,700 cubic yards were of solid rock. The heaviest excavation of rock took place along the shore of Loch Ness, particularly between Inverness and Achnahannet. But the mountain of labour has not been in vain, for thereby one of the narrowest and most dangerous roadways in Britain has been turned into a modern motoring highway through the Great Glen of Scotland, with a vista of loch and mountain unrivalled anywhere.
Wonderful.
You captivated yet?
Well, I was going to say, they don't put text like that in the brochures anymore,
No,
but yeah, that's fantastic.
So I'll carry on. A sum of about £900,000 is estimated to be the total cost of the 80 miles of new road from North Ballyhoolish to Inverness. The cost per mile works out at £13,000, which, considering that it includes bridges, land compensation and administrative charges, is a very low figure. As many as 1,200 men have been engaged on the work at one time, but now, with the end in sight, the number is not quite so large. From Ballyhoolish to Fort Augustus, the road is completed, surfacing there having been finished some time ago. For the next 24 miles from Fort Augustus to Brachla in Glen Urquhart, surfacing is being rapidly executed at the rate of 1.5 mile per week. That's quick, isn't it? That's not bad.
And again, kind of the time, that was with older surfacing and asphalt. Yeah, that's quite an achievement.
Yep. Along Loch Ness side, it is perhaps worth mentioning parking places for motor cars have been ingeniously worked into the routeway, and attractive rockery walls have been erected. Thus, beauty and utility have been happily combined.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'll jump over.
Okay.
The Ministry of Transport and Inverness County Council have been responsible for the operations in Inverness, stretching from North Ballyhoolish to Inverness, and the new road has been designed by Major Robert Bruce, from his headquarters at Inverness, has had the entire work under his supervision. Major Bruce was also the chief engineer of the Perth-Inverness Road. Perhaps the immensity of the reconstruction is best conveyed by the bridge building, which has been found necessary. No fewer than 55 bridges along the route had to be reconstructed. Some of them were widened and made to fulfill modern requirements, but in the majority of cases an entirely new structure had to be substituted. All but 3 of these 55 road bridges have now been constructed, thus exceptions being the bridges at Borlum, Inverness and Fort Augustus. Great care has been taken to ensure that aesthetically the bridges will conform with the natural surroundings, which vary very much along the route. Major Bruce, the engineer in charge, designed the bridges, and in case of the larger structures, Messrs Blythe and Blythe, consulting engineers of Edinburgh, and Mears and Cos Wilson, consulting architects of Edinburgh, collaborated with them in the preparation of these designs. Close touch was kept with the Society for the Preservation of Rural Scotland, who gave their approval of the designs adopted.
Okay.
Apart from the 55 road bridges, 3 double-way swing structures have been built over the Caledonian Canal at Laggan, Abercalder and Fort Augustus respectively. These bridges have been constructed by Sir William Arrol and Co., who were also responsible for their designs in collaboration with Mr. Eustace Porter, engineer and manager of the canal. So there you go.
Very good. How old is that bit of text that you read us there, Duncan?
That's from
Remind us again.
June 1933.
So what I picked up from this, Stuart, maybe you will, about the particular focus and attention that were made to make it the road, as particular structures you're saying, in keeping with the surroundings, which we think of. We speak about the Inner Ring Road in Glasgow, and we think about the consulting architects that thought, and that was cutting edge and modern at the time, but they were thinking about this back then.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this was due to the Perth Inverness Road. Owen Williams was in charge of the bridges, and he decided to construct large concrete structures. Look at the bridge over the Fenton at Tomatin for an example of this, and these were very much criticised at the time for being quite ugly and quite not in keeping with the landscape.
Stark.
Yeah. So if you look at the bridges here, they've got sort of masonry facades. They're all quite... They're not as...
handsome.
They're much nicer looking. Not that the Fenton Bridge is horrible, but they sit much nicer in the landscape anyway.
That is interesting. Yeah. No, it's a good passage of text. And
I'll quickly just go through the sections, then we can have a bit more of a discussion.
Sure.
So, Kinloch Leven to North Ballachulish, that was completed around 1927. Now, I've seen in a couple of places that this was constructed by prisoners of World War I.
All right.
Who were in charge of that.
That would be a bit earlier than that, though,
yeah.
wouldn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised at some of this because a lot of them were involved in construction projects.
Mm-hmm.
What was the completion date? Sorry?
1927.
But that's
quite
like
late.
13, 14 years after the war.
I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Some of them stayed, though. This is the thing. I mean,
a lot of them did hang around,
Like interwar housing and all things like that was built by prisoners of war.
Fair enough. Could be.
You know?
Yeah, well, fair enough, huh?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then from next section, from North Ballachulish to Fort William. That was constructed by the Ulston Limestone Company of Newcastle. That was about 12 miles long.
Is that the bit running about Corrin Ferry?
Yes.
Aye.
That annoying twisty bit. And then Matthew Muir and Company Limited did the Nevis Bridge and the Kinnish Bridge as well on that section. So that going on from there, Fort William to Invergloy, which is just before Loch Lochie, at the top of the hill, basically. Mm-hmm. That was constructed by Mr. J.M. Broadfoot of Newport, and that was about 14 miles.
Okay, so before you go further on,
mm-hmm.
Fort William then. So there's some modern improvements in Fort William.
I'll just shuffle around a little bit,
The only bit, Stuart, that I know you've got some dual carriageway.
Yeah.
And it's semi-urban, I suppose, isn't it? But what's the story at Fort William then?
I believe it was an old railway line initially.
Okay.
Using the railway line, so it was a main line or it was a spur. I'm not 100% sure, but this was removed
along the shoreline,
hard up against the water, and this was removed, and a dual carriageway was put along here. Mm-hmm. The main contractor was the main consultant was Sir William Halcrow and Partners.
Oh yeah,
and it was William Taws built it. Now this is really mysterious because we don't really know when it was done. It was around 1974, 1975. Don't know if there was official opening or whatever, but it did bypass the Fort William Town Centre.
I think you're due a little visit to the local studies area.
I agree, John.
I think
Fort William. That's where Stuart and I get all these dates from.
Yeah. I'll need to go and visit. Yeah. Now it's very strange. I don't know if you know Fort William, but at the end of the dual carriageway, when you go back onto the 82, there's the Morrisons, and then the dual carriageway kind of keeps going, and then it stops, and it looks like it was meant to keep going.
Yeah, is there any info behind that? No.
The only thing I found is boreholes were done on a possible continuation of this.
Like a Fort William
northern
bypass almost.
Yeah, but again, nothing's happened, so it's still sitting there doing nothing.
Do you think that any potential future Fort William bypass could take that corridor, or is there too much in there now? Or
yes, you could easily squeeze a single carriageway with a footway in. You could easily do something. You would need to cross the railway though, and then of course cross the River Nevis. But it would provide a benefit because once you get off that dual carriageway into the north of Fort William, you've got a lot of frontage, a lot of businesses. It can be busy. It can be slow.
Yeah.
So I do think we could maybe have a look at this again. We've done the boreholes.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is get a road in there. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So that's that section. Fort William to Invergloy, we've done that bit. Next is Invergloy to Laggan Bridge, so the bit that runs along Loch Lochie. You know this bit. That was constructed by the Ulston Limestone Company of Newcastle, and this was 1927. So again, like the other bit, this bit was done first, and then we didn't do any more, and then we decided, let's redo the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
This bit's quite distinct because it's got narrow concrete bridges along it.
Yeah,
which you've
all
seen
other ones. Yeah,
that folk keep bashing into
well,
and
those
break.
very low level parapets.
Very low level parapets,
Uh-huh.
very narrow, and they keep getting hit. So yeah, that kind of is that
It's
defining
very
feature.
hard up against the lock, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah.
There's another improvement we can go through.
Mhm.
So that this, I've been told by folk in the council days that this was originally quite an up and down lock route. It went up and down, twist around, and all they did was basically flatten it out and widen it. So this is the Loch-Lochy improvement, and that was constructed around 1990.
Right.
We think.
Oh,
Okay.
Very
that's
good.
quite late.
Yep, and it was built by Tractor Shovels and Highland Regional Council, were the main
Mhm.
designers of this. So you do have overtaking opportunities there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's quite straight in some areas
Yep.
along there. Yeah.
It's very straight. And actually, you can see the old railway line up above the road as well. You can see lots of bridges and culverts, because it was a little railway line that went from somewhere to Fort Augustus. I'm not a railway person, but I do know that's still there. So you can have a look at it for that. And then we get to Lagan Bridge and we cross the canal on the swing bridges,
Oh, yes.
which are very, very interesting. I've had a bit of involvement with the fixing of these. These are very old structures. They've had a lot of work done to them. The three bridges that Bear Scotland have is Lagan, Abercalder and Fort Augustus. And we've also got the Banavie Swing Bridge on the A830. You know, at the bottom of Neptune Staircase?
Yep.
Got that road and railway. So Bear have got all four of them. They've been substantially upgraded. So they're
So when
pretty-
were they originally put in?
So they're originally put in around 1932. They've got little plaques on them. Lagan Aberhall, they've got a little plaque that says Sir William Harrell, 1932.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now these
So-
are all a key part of the Caledonian Canal.
Key part of the Caledonian Canal, yeah. So they were they were looked after by British Waterways, who then became kind of devolved and joined up with
Scottish
Scottish
Canals.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
So these four bridges were then taken on because these were seen as quite strategic. Yeah.
Of course.
And they are very important, because if they break and we're doing work on them or whatever, the diversion
It's
is
a busy waterway
Yes.
as well. Even
Oh,
as
yeah, they
well. So
swing-
even for
in the summer. They are open and closing quite a lot throughout
Yeah.
the day. Yeah. So you can see them. They're quite interesting things. They've got sort of big wedges that pull them out and they all swing. They're interesting wee
I love
things.
how they still work and they've been looked after. I mean,
Mhm.
the only thing is, I've never been caught at them.
Have you not?
I've actually had to stop and wait. How long is it for one of them that the cycle takes of stopping, opening, and
a few minutes. A few minutes.
5 minutes tops.
Yeah.
If there's lots of stuff going through, it can take a bit longer, but the actual closing of the road and swinging the bridge doesn't take.
So is there a
Too
little
long.
control room?
There's a
down
little.
there?
They've all got little booths on them. Lagan Aberhalder and Fort Augustus have got little booths on them.
Okay.
And then at Banavie is quite interesting because it's a bit different in design. It's got like a viewing platform so you can see the bridge and see what's going on.
That's really cool.
It's quite
I've never
cool.
stopped at them. Like I said, it's always just been straight through.
Is there one at Fort Augustus?
Yes, there's the one
Right.
at Fort
So
Augustus.
I've been stuck at the one at Fort Augustus
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that one's
So-
busy because that one's open quite a lot because you do have a lot of boats going into the lock chambers.
Yeah.
So the lock chambers I think can take about 6 at a time. So if you're trying to get all 6 boats through the bridge, it can back up a fair bit. But Fort Augustus, I think they're probably quite used to having it.
Mhm.
It's just when it breaks.
Yeah, that's
the
when
annoying
it becomes
part.
the problem.
Yeah. So there's been lots of like recovery procedures done. So it's they're ready for the apocalypse basically.
Well,
So
you
they'll
know,
be-
that's good to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They'll be all right. So going on from there, so from Lagan Bridge to Fort Augustus, that was completed around 1931, and that was constructed by Jackson & Co. Limited, and Melville, Dundas and Whitstone did
Whitson.
Whitson, yes. They did the Oich Bridge, and I think it's along here, I'm trying to remember, there's the junction to the A87 along
Yeah.
here.
Now, Oich, that's an interesting one because there's not an old bridge sits alongside
Yes,
the
there is.
existing
There's
bridge.
the old suspension bridge
Yeah,
that sits
that's
alongside
a
it.
stunning wee
That
suspension
is a
bridge.
stunning
that
bridge.
Oich.
It doesn't go anywhere,
No.
but it's a fantastic little thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got the concrete structure next to it, and then you've got the swing bridge next to it as
Yeah,
well. So the
Oich is
road-
nice for a park up and a walk if you're
A wee
having
walk about,
break,
yeah.
There's
Uh-huh.
a castle near there, near the 87.
Is there?
Invergary Castle?
Invergary Castle, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that. So
And
yeah,
some of these things.
lots of little things just hidden away that you would
Mhm.
never normally notice. Yeah.
It is probably for me, Duncan.
Mhm.
Not sure about you,
Yeah.
Stuart, but it's the section of the 82 I probably drive the least.
Yeah.
because I'm already turned off at that point, being based in the Central Belt. I come from the south and go that way. But no, relying on your expertise here.
Oh, thanks, expertise. That's what we're calling it now, is it? Okay. So at Fort Augustus, we then join the route up Loch Ness.
Yes.
The Great Loch Ness. This is 30 mile. This is around a 30-mile odd road up the side of the Loch Ness. It's the second deepest loch in Scotland at around 230 metres.
Now,
do you know what the deepest is?
I read this the other day, what the deepest loch is.
Is it not Loch Long?
No.
No. Is it not Loch Orr? No, it's not Loch Orr.
No.
Oh,
One chance left, man.
One chance. I don't
For
know.
£5,000,
I
can you
did
guess?
read it the other day, and I just can't remember off the top of my
Loch
head.
Morar.
Loch Morar.
310 metres deep. And Loch Ness holds more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined.
That's quite a stat,
It's
isn't
vast.
it?
There could be a whole city under there. We don't know.
This is people going off to the Lake District all the time. They think it's quite something. Come to Scotland.
Oh,
yeah.
Interestingly, at Fort Augustus, Thomas Telford originally constructed the 82 through there, as we know. And at Fort Augustus, he decided to ignore the route of the military road.
Oh.
So the 82 follows the route of Thomas Telford's road. On the other side of the loch, we've got the military road that's still used today by the Highland Council roads. Is it the A82?
Now, I have driven that because I've done the lap of it, but it was a very long time ago. Yeah.
It's a big steep climb up, and then you're high up in the hills. You're very, very high up. There's still bits of single track, so it's not a perfect diversion, but it's an alternative when the 82 is a bit slow. It is good fun though. It's very, very good fun. I do enjoy going along there.
Yeah.
Yep. So the 82 follows the Telford Road, and this was built around about the 1810s, and this was mostly done to link up communities because it was all about improving communication. So we're linking up these places like Drumnadrochit and Invermoriston. There's not the 30s road essentially widened it all, but there was little change to it. So there's not many opportunities for overtaking. So it can be a bit slow going up here. I
remember it being very busy as well. I think I was in there in the summer months. So.
Yeah. Go back to the improvements. From Fort Augustus to Invermoriston, that was completed around 1932, and that was Jackson and Co. And that was about 8 miles long. And then from Invermoriston to Achnahannet, which is a little place alongside the loch, that was 1934, and that was William Tawes constructed that section.
Okay.
And then we just quickly finish these. We've got Achnahannet to Brackla. Now, Brackla, you're probably thinking, where on earth is Brackla? It's 8 miles long, this section, and there at Brackla, there is an AA black and yellow phone box at the side of the AA. You must have seen this at the big visitor centre.
Yep.
So that's there. So that's where Brackla is. And then from Brackla to the causeway at Dochfur, these two sections were AM Carmichael. This was 8 miles long, and this was one of the last sections of the road to be constructed and finished. So this was officially opened on the 27th of September 1934. Okay. And there was a little lay-by, which there is a grainy black and white picture of the opening, and there's a lot of folk there, but I can't figure out where it is, but it's somewhere along there. And then we finally got the last bit from Dochfur down to Inverness, and that was 1936-37. And that takes us into Inverness.
Holds up quite well. Again,
it does.
All of these sections down there, just like I say, quite busy. You're right, though; it can be quite difficult to get past.
Yeah,
in some of the areas. I know. Do you know that's the other castle, Uchert Castle?
Yes, that castle.
Which is down that way. It's just on the side of Loch Ness.
Yeah, so we go back down Loch Ness. There was a big study done in the late 80s by the Highland Council, basically to say, can we improve this road? Can we do anything with the overtaking? And I think 2 locations were identified as easily achievable for overtaking, and that's at Altsai, one of the sections. Right. I think it's north of Invermoriston, where you're up high and then the road kind of sweeps down and it straightens out. Yeah. You know that bit? We've all overtaken on that bit.
I will if you show me it.
Yes.
I haven't got a computer in front of me, but I'm just kind of like smiling and nodding right now.
But yeah,
I know people can't see that, but yeah.
But that was that section, and that was constructed around May 1984. And that was K. Stewart from Struthpeffer Limited did that.
So that section, it's just two-way traffic. It's It's not an overtaking lane or anything.
It's wider.
It's a wider and it's realigned, I suppose.
So it's much straighter, so you can pass stuff, which I've done. And then at Achnahannet, there's a fun little feature. If you go into Google Street View and look back in time a little bit, you'll see the Stig from Top Gear standing at the side of the road.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
What, in the full Stig outfit?
Yep.
It's not
just standing at the side of the road.
Right,
Google
okay.
goes past and there he is. I don't know why he's there. I don't know if it's the real Stig or not.
Is
but
he standing there with that signature arms folded?
He is.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
That's a little Easter egg, as they call it.
Yep. And then at Drumnadrocket, we all like Drumnadrocket. That's where
Yes.
Urquhart Castle is. Lots of very busy in the summer months, very touristy. And A82 was actually mentioned in the little film Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh.
So there's a little sign that says A82 and it's Drumnadrocket and the mystery machine goes past it, so it's quite... Yes.
That section in at Castle Urquhart, there was a lay-by there that was closed for a number of years.
Oh yes, that's
Has that all
further.
been
That's
fixed?
further up.
Is that all done
That's
now?
further up. That's near Dockfure. That
Right.
was... I think there was something wrong with it. There was ground troubles or
Yeah.
something, but that's all
Also,
beefed out and opened up.
Good.
Yeah. So that's a nice big lay-by, and it's also on a straight, so you can actually get past stuff as well,
Right, okay.
if you can. And then the 82 finally crosses the causeway at Dockfure and then enters Inverness, and it encounters another swing bridge at Tomnahurich, just
Yeah.
outside Inverness. Do
Tom
we know
the
this
Hurrick.
one?
You may know Tom the
Do you
Hurrick.
know who
So
this-
wait, there's another project here it kind of relates to. What was it? The West Link.
The West Link. So the West Link is the connection from the A82 to the distributor road, which links round the south of Inverness to the A9, and that's the
The one that-
A8082.
Yes, and that goes past like called Duthel and Milton of what's it called?
Milton Lays.
Milton
But
Lays.
past sort of Drakey's and Inches.
Yeah.
So it stopped at this roundabout just before the river. So they've extended it over, and then phase 1 was the bridge over the River Ness to link it up. And then phase 2 was quite interesting. There was another swing bridge constructed to basically double up reliability of the Tomnahurich swing bridge. So we've got Torvain swing bridge there. That was put in. So if boats are coming along, we open one bridge, but we keep the other bridge open. And then we close one bridge, and then we open the other bridge and let the boats go. And there's virtually there should be no traffic disruption, basically, because there's always a bridge to use.
They've sort of overbuilt that, but I can see why. And it's terrific.
It does work. It does work.
Very busy in the summer.
When
Yeah.
did the West Link open? When did
So the first bit of the West Link opened in December 2017. It was built by Willis Brothers.
Oh yeah.
So that's the bit that goes past like the rugby park and over the river.
Yeah.
And then stage 2 was built by R.J. McLeod, and that's literally just the swing bridge. And Cleveland Bridge actually had a bit of involvement with the swing bridge. I think it was one of their later projects before they disappeared. And this was done to basically alleviate congestion. You know, it's not perfect. It has had some issues, but you know, it's good that we've got it there. I know there's a lot of people who like to criticise the swing bridges and say this should have been a tunnel. Should have been a tunnel under the canal. This should have been an aqueduct or a tunnel under the
We
canal.
don't build tunnels in Scotland.
We don't build
people.
tunnels in Scotland. Have you got the money to build the tunnel?
Yeah.
Go ahead, be my guest. But no, the swing bridge is good. It's good
Yeah,
fun. Good fun. I do like it.
Okay.
The 82 then enters Inverness, and it initially terminated at the Kenneth Street junction, which is the one with all the traffic lights along it. And then when Keswick Bridge opened, they extended the 82 along the route of the A9 to Raigmore. And then, if we remember back to the Keswick Bridge podcast, remember the Jack Holmes report of Inverness and the Highlands?
Yep.
They recommended that another bridge needed to be built across the river. And this became the A82. So this is Friars Bridge.
Yep, good old Friars.
Good old
Yeah.
Friars Bridge. We do like Friars Bridge. We shout out to Don Fraser, who was one of the engineers on it. He's one of our friends. And this was opened on the 23rd of December, 1986.
So again, another modern one.
Another modern one, but it is good.
Now, remind me, I'm thinking back to the Keswick podcast, which is still available, by the way.
Yes.
Was Friars Bridge part of the Inverness Inner Relief Road?
Inner Relief Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was stage 1. Jameson Mackay were the main designers of this, and it was built by Edmund Nuttall Limited.
Yep.
And stage 2, if I flip over and I've written it down properly, shuffling the papers here, Shore Street to Harbour Road. So that was basically the bit that goes over the railway line in Inverness, and that opened on the 30th of June 1989, and that was built by Morrison's, and it was numbered the 82 when it opened.
Yeah.
And that takes us basically up to the Longman Roundabout,
Yeah.
and that is the end of the 82. It just comes to a stop, and then
Right
it
on
goes
Longman Roundabout.
right on Longman Roundabout and goes no further.
Well, it can't go any further, I suppose, at that stage. And there are some plans with Longman Roundabout, aren't there?
There are some plans to get this a flyover constructed for the A9.
That's right. And I understand Longman can be brutal. And it can be quite bad on match days. You live up there, Duncan, you're the authority.
I've always found going north up to it, up the A9, is where it queues.
Yeah.
south across the bridge, it does back up, but it's not common that it backs up across the bridge.
What about from the A82?
It queues, but it's not terrible. It's mostly the A9.
You say that, but southbound. You remember when we were in Inverness, and I made
was
the big long journey up to Inverness.
Yes.
And we attended the Keswick Bridge.
The Keswick Bridge event, and we went to the
event.
compound, yeah.
And remember the queues that day southbound across the bridge were horrific.
Yes. Well, you got a good look at the bridge, didn't it? Because it was its 40th birthday, so we had to have a look at it.
That. No, okay. So I suppose that's it for the
That's
A82.
the end of the A82, gents.
So in terms of a route then, so thinking part 1 and part 2, bringing the whole route together.
Yes.
It's so long that it's difficult to consider it just a single route. Because there'll be very few people that probably drive it end to end regularly. There'll be people that go.
We do.
We go to Glencoe quite a lot, or I
come
go
off
to
the
Tarbert a lot, or you do bits of it, right? And it's like John says, like I'm the same as John. Anything north of Speed Bridge to me is basically foreign, to be honest. I don't often go much further north than
that's
the
why we have
that.
you, Duncan.
That's why yeah.
So it's an interesting stretch, but it's interesting here now that all the parts coming together, not just from the designers, some of the contractors, and there's some very familiar names in there from some of the old Central Belt schemes as well, which is good to hear. Like Whitson, Melville did that in Whitson, who did the south approaches to the Clyde Tunnel.
Oh, so they did.
This is only the second roads project I've ever heard them mentioned. So there you go. So I've learned something. This time.
Fantastic.
So that was very interesting as well. Do you have a favourite section of the A2 yourself?
Oh,
that's a good question.
The end.
The end.
No,
the Inverness.
Which end?
Oh, the Glencoe section, probably, and Ballachulish. That's.
I think it's difficult. It would be difficult to argue against that, really, wouldn't it?
I mean, I think as much as there's lots happened to the route, as we've just spoken about, north of Fort William, it can get a bit monotonous.
Yeah.
Because it is just a single carriageway going left and right, going through the hills. You've got stunning views, but it's not the most exciting road to drive. When you're stuck behind stuff, you just want to get to the end, to be honest. Yeah. When it's quiet, it's all right, but when it's busy, nah. Yeah. It can be a bit difficult.
I mean, on the other side of the coin, I would pick probably the Boulevard section in Glasgow because it's very of its time, very impressive. And if you take the Glencoe section as the most scenic and the most impressive from that point of view, you could probably take the Boulevard as being a very impressive example of 1930s engineering
of something. Let's just build a big thing.
Carriageway.
It's the same with kind of Dundee and the Kingsway.
Well, I like if eventually you're going to get around to asking me, but I've always liked the bit between the Erskine Bridge and the Barton. And
the dual carriageway.
The dual carriageway section. The reason is for the sheer audacity of it. I like it and how it twists and it goes. And there's a section I know when it drops the speed limit, it goes through Milton and these places. But I do think it's quite clever how the road snakes through there. But I am aware, in some ways that road can be, you've got to keep your wits about you. So, but I do. I've always liked that section. You do get some kind of quite good views in areas as well. So.
It's a road of variable character.
So I've got one for you. If we've got time, guys. All right. I mean,
is this John Hassel question time? Is it?
Yes, it is.
It is.
We don't have any questions that came in from listeners or people on social media. So I wanted to pose a question to you guys. Okay, you've each got £1 billion.
Oh, thanks.
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, but you have to spend it on the 82. What section would you want to upgrade? Okay, Duncan, so I'm going to come to you first, since you are our guest of honour here. Mm-hmm. What section would you change, improve, whatever it is? What would you do?
That little stub at Fort William where the bypass could go, I'd love to see something done there.
Oh, right.
Maybe something looked at there. It would be good. It'd be a good little scheme. I would like to see something done there. Elsewhere, I wouldn't say it needs anything massive.
I mean, going back to Fort William, what would be your justification for an improvement to the bypass at Fort William?
Yeah, I mean, it's congested going through Fort William. It is slow. You've got that dual carriageway bit, and then it all slows down going through. So I would happily do something there. Plus, I think Fort William would like doing it.
You think one thing about bypassing towns in these scenic parts of the world, right, is that would any you think people in Fort William might be like, oh, he'd lose trade because of that or something? But
I mean,
you'd have to sign it.
Yeah, I mean, we are bypassing the more industrial area where there's lots of shops and all the building stuff there. So the town centre's already bypassed. It would be good to just keep going all the way around.
And of course, the junction with the 830 is very busy as well, isn't it?
That's a little roundabout. Yeah. That was signalled initially. and then we put in a roundabout, but it is busy.
Mm-hmm.
Can be a bit congested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But popularity of the area, people come and visit, so it's going to get busy.
So what form would this take? So you would say it was a continuation of the dual carriageway, and it would be a complete dual carriageway. But maybe you got $1 billion here.
I would like to see a dual carriageway. I don't think it really justifies dual carriageway.
Okay.
I think maybe just a single carriageway with a big cycleway on it. That would be all right.
How modern? Okay.
How modern?
No, that's fair enough. You got a few bridges in there as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Stuart, what's your take? How do you feel it could be improved?
Well, I guess away from the Glasgow City Council section, which obviously has its problems and its congestion issues, I'm not really sure we can do much there anyway. It's always going to be busy. It's always been busy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Tarbert to Inverness section is obviously in need of a bit of love, given what you discussed in part one. It's a bit, it's a bit windy weavy. It's a bit substandard in places. It doesn't meet modern requirements. I think the scheme that's coming there would be the priority for the A82. Because let's be honest, when you said it yourself, south of there, north of there, actually the road is built to pretty good standard.
It's all right.
Busy at times, but it's reasonable quality. It doesn't have major
probably why it's survived
issues.
So long since the 30s that we've not had to rebuild it.
If we deal with the Tarbert Inverness section in the middle, that probably brings the entire corridor up to a reasonable standard.
And then we can look at dueling the whole thing in the future.
These are the views of Duncan McKnight.
I was going to say these are all just we were just having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's about time we had the A82M in Dumbarton. Kind of a Dumbarton urban motorway slight system. Come on, I'm being imaginative. You guys are all playing
we're gonna have to
safe.
stop there, unfortunately.
I am winding you guys up. But I do think that improvement certainly in that section between Dumbarton, although I have said it's my favourite bit, that would be very, very welcome. And if we look at some of the most geotechnical challenges you would have there, there's huge. But you can't even push it out the way south. You would have to go north. Yeah. Could Dumbarton even be bypassed to the top? Could the improvements happen there?
Well, the A82 is the bypass of Dumbarton.
But
Dumbarton's going around it.
But it still goes through Dumbarton. There's a lot of junctions. There's a lot of houses. Is it properties onto it?
Is it bad at peak times?
Yes.
Is it? Oh,
also,
right. I'm quite naive.
Another problem, Duncan, is if there's an incident or something that happens, a diversion.
No diversion.
Well, you can put them through Dumbarton.
I bet they love that.
But this is another problem.
There's the Y junction as you're heading north towards Dumbarton, where you can branch off, take the 814 towards Helensburgh, and the bypass, so the diversion of the 82 is blocked as everybody onto the old road, and that snags up very quickly. There was an incident a few weeks ago where I think there was a utility issue, and one of the contractors had to come in very urgently and do work, and the A82 ground to a halt. The whole of Dumbarton just crumbled.
Anyway, if I couldn't do that, I don't know, I've been thinking the section by Loch Ness, more of those sorts of improvements that you discussed, carry out kind of realignment,
overtaking lanes and things,
realignment, because that section's busy as well. So if you didn't let me do that, I could easily spend $1 billion up there, to be honest with you.
Yes.
So there we go, wishful thinking, and again, we'll say this is just our own personal views. People who are far more sensible will get around to improving it in years to come, I'm sure. So there we go.
That's been a very interesting 2 parts.
Yes,
I've enjoyed it.
Learned a lot there. I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed it.
One final thing to mention: the section between Ballachulish and Inverness. Some of the big bridges have all got big plaques on them. That's where I got most of the information. So if you're curious, go up the 82, go plaque spotting, and you'll see all the nice plaques.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll see
and I hope
plaques.
They've been added to our register of plaques.
They have indeed.
That's
pictures as well, Stuart. Not to worry. No.
Good.
And we got and coordinates as well.
Good
stuff. Well, listen. Thank you, Duncan. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll definitely have you back again. Lots of topics for you to discuss, I'm sure. John and I will obviously be back with
our usual
podcast soon.
Usual programming.
But all our episodes, over 50 of them now, in fact, probably approaching 60 episodes now, are all available where you will find your podcasts. Spotify, Podbean, Apple, YouTube. They're all there. Yes, they're all there.
They're on the website as well, at the bottom of the page.
Indeed they are. So go on there, leave us a link. Coming back to the website, constant updates on the go there. Like we mentioned in part 1, we've got an A82 page now where we get the detailed route history available for you to download. So if you want to know a bit more about what Duncan's been talking about across these 2 episodes, give that a look. Well worth it.
And we got social media, that's still going.
Oh yeah.
We call it X or Twitter now. We also have Facebook, and we have Instagram, where we share all our usual posts daily.
Yes, that's right. And
a special mention to our supporters of the Scottish Roads Archive and the Roadscast, Nigel and the team at Highway Barrier Solutions. We also have Eastwood Excavations as well.
And Andy and the team down there, so thank you very much to those guys for keeping us on the air.
Yep.
So that's all for this episode. We will be keeping you entertained again very soon, I'm sure. But until then...
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.